The moderator is Holly Beilin, and she is the editor-in-chief of Hypopotamus. And my clients have been getting into Hypopotamus. It's a terrific publication. And I hope that you also know that it's a great way to get inspired, too, when you see what's going on in the startup scene here throughout Georgia. And maybe you go into beyond, I guess, but a lot in Georgia, Atlanta, Savannah. So without further ado, we will get the panel underway. They're going to introduce each of themselves by themselves, and I've asked them to also throw in something personally or professionally that might not be in their regular bio. It made them a little nervous at first, but I said, you know, could be hang gliding. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything that personal. And this session is an hour and 15 minutes. At about 20 minutes before the close, we'll start the Q&A session. Welcome our panel, please.
Hi, everyone. Oh, this is working. Excellent. So, yes, my name's Holly. I'm the editor-in-chief at Hypopotamus, and what I'm really excited about is that you actually have my very, very recent predecessor on our panel as well, Kiki down there, who was the former editor-in-chief until about a month and a week ago. So I'll let her introduce herself. But firstly, I'll give you a brief background. I have been working in communications in and around the tech sphere for a little while in PR and marketing. I worked for an academic technology research institution based out of North Carolina, so Southern pride all the way. And then I worked for a digital health company based in Atlanta in PR. And now I'm at Hype, which, in case you don't know, is the largest tech and startup news publication in the Southeast. So if we haven't covered you, we may cover you. If you want a job in the Southeast, please visit our job board. If you want to hear about an event like Geekend, please visit our events calendar. Something you may not know about me, so I might seem like, well, I am kind of the newbie on this panel, and I'm lucky enough to moderate it, but what you might not know is that I'm actually 6.5. I was born on Leap Day. So that is an interesting, fun fact, and it's usually a really great truth and a lie. And now I'm going to pass the mic off and let my panelists introduce themselves.
Good morning. As you can probably tell from my accent, I'm not from Georgia. I'm actually from London, England. I came here 8 years ago. My name is Leslie Francis, and I founded and built a top 25 UK public relations agency, which I was lucky enough to sell in 2007. And now I run a boutique public relations and marketing agency in Savannah. And I love it here, but the explanation of how I got here needs wine and time, which we don't have. The fact that you might not know about me, obviously my day job is to try and look professional and wear makeup and all that stuff. I like nothing better on the weekend than to not wear makeup, wear the most revoltingly slobby clothes, roll around with my dogs, bake, get flour all over the place. So that's my de-stressor.
Do you want to hang out this weekend?
Absolutely. Hey, I am Renee Spurlin. I'm Vice President of Digital Marketing and Analytics at ARPR. We are based out of Atlanta, and we're just named Bulldog Reporter's top tech PR agency in the country last year, actually. So we only represent tech clients in SaaS, cybersecurity, mobility, health IT, and mission critical. I'm also past president of the American Marketing Association of Atlanta, which is the third largest chapter. And between my PR role and that role, I've really kind of seen a disconnect in PR and marketing and sales. Sales doesn't think they're getting what they need from marketing. Marketing doesn't think they're getting what they need from PR. So that really brings me to my current role, where I'm trying to bridge that gap through analytics and marketing automation, which is a service that a lot of PR agencies don't usually dabble in. And my fun fact, so you can find me on Twitter at I'm a Pepper, and that handle is for two reasons. One, Dr. Pepper is my coffee. I've been obsessed with Dr. Pepper since I was tiny. I keep waiting for them to offer me money for that Twitter handle, by the way. And I also make my own hot sauce.
Man, I'm sitting next to some tasty people making good stuff. Hi, everyone. My name is Roeder. I am the president and co-founder of the Roeder Strategy Studio, a company that operates in 12 states and 3 countries. I am also the managing partner of Hypopotamus, which, as Holly mentioned, is the most read tech and startup news blog in the Southeast and features great events and jobs. I'm particularly excited about being on this panel today because I've been on all 3 sides of this. Before my last startup was acquired, I really struggled with figuring out how to get into press, as well as I've been in public relations at Microsoft and the University of Tennessee, where I was the director of communications and digital strategy. And I've also been a writer, working through Hype and hearing tons of pitches and seeing what that's like, as well as writing for Fortune, Forbes, and Fast Company, and tons of other publications. My kind of random fact is I have been to 6 continents. I actually just came here from South America about 12 hours ago. I'm very tired. I'm also slightly afraid of goats, so there's that.
Okay, well, now you know a lot about us. So the first thing that we were thinking we would start with is we all talk about media attention, right? And as a founder, you're figuring out your product, you're figuring out your customers, you're figuring out your market fit. Why do you need to focus on media? Why is that even important? So what's the value of that media attention? And the first person I really want to start with for this is Leslie, because of her background and her, experience in this field. What's the value of gaining media attention? Why do you need that when you're focusing on building a lean team?
Thank you, Holly. And in today's world, with so much open in the digital scene, you can blog yourself, you can be on social media. I can throw all sorts of studies at you, which actually shows that anything that is seen to be reported independently, i.e. by an independent member of the media who does not have a vested interest, is 3 to 7 times more powerful than something you say yourself, either via paid advertising or by blogging yourself. So the media remains to be important, albeit the media scene is changing, and we're going to explore that over the next hour. But stop and think, who are your target audiences? Now, as entrepreneurs and startup, we probably all, let's do lots and lots of activity. Let's throw spaghetti at the wall and hope it sticks. Let's blog here. Let's have all of the social. Let's Instagram, tweet. Let's send out dozens of press releases. Well, no. Think about who you're trying to reach, and also the life cycle. So if you've already got a product that's launched and available, then yes, you want to be in the consumer media because you want people to buy it. But you're probably at an earlier stage than that. So you're probably looking at the business to business, the potential investors, the people that can acquire your startup, and think about the media, think about what they read, what they watch, what they listen to, what social media they're linked into, to use a pun. Stop, think, consider, target.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And then, I think, Kiki, you would speak to something like this really well as someone that has been a founder, right? You've been, like you said, you pitched the media, or you understood the value of pitching the media, and then you were the media. So we talk a lot as an early stage founder, and you think a lot about, what does the market really need? What is my product providing that's different from anything else that's in the market? How can getting media attention, how can speaking to the media provide value in that space and reflect what the market needs?
I think that's a really good question. So how many of you have been an entrepreneur in a kind of a business venture right now? So almost everyone, right? So when you're founding a company, there's like the 4 P's to marketing, right? There's your product, what you're actually making and promoting or selling. There's, the price, how much you're giving it for. There's placement, so, where it's gonna go, and then there's promotion. And so much when you're actually in the process of building your company, you're like in the minutia of this little widget has to work, and this line of code is not rendering correctly, and all that other stuff that you often forget, oh man, I have to tell people about what I'm doing, and I have to do it the right way. A lot of people think that if I build it, they will come. That's very inaccurate. So I find that in the time that you can, develop a clever tweet, or you're, telling someone, you can actually send an email to someone that's going to tell your story. And a lot of people don't realize that the media is going to give you market validation for what you're doing, right? Others will see that it's going out there into the world, that a reporter, that a publication is seeing that what you're doing is of worth, and that's going to help drive traffic, is going to help drive users. So really creating a PR strategy is very important. Whether or not you're kind of bootstrapping or working with an incredible, firm like these two are at, it becomes really important. And that's why a lot of startups fail, is because they work so hard to build their product, and they keep on iterating and iterating that they forget that they actually have to tell people about it. So.
One mic thing is fun. That makes total sense. And then, the last piece I kind of want to touch on in the value of media is, as an early stage founder, let's say you're thinking 40 to 50% about your product. I bet I could point my finger at most of you in this room and ask what the other 40 or 50% of your time is spent on, and it's this, right? Getting funding, getting money, and having that to build your company, build your product. And that's something that the media can really help with as well. And I kind of want to throw this question to my top tech PR firm expert on the panel, but how can getting some media attention and speaking to the media help you continue to finance your little baby of a project?
Media can absolutely be crucial in helping you to get and find financiers. So I actually had a client in Business Insider over the Christmas holidays, and he came back to 3 messages from potential investors, which is awesome. We've seen studies that you're 2 times more likely to get funding if you've had media coverage, and that's for a couple of reasons. It's for the third-party validation that these two mentioned, but it's also because engaging in PR really helps you hone in on your message and what your pitch to investors is. To get media attention, you've got to have a crisp, concise value proposition that then helps you talk to investors as well. And the last thing I'll throw out too that we haven't mentioned is talent. Media coverage is great at helping you recruit and retain talent. People want to work for a company that's been in the news, and they want to stay at a company. It helps them feel validation working for you if you're covered in the media.
That's true. That's a really good point. So, it's valuable. You want to get in Fast Company. Great. How do you start? I mean, I guess that's kind of the next question, right? You're a founder. You might have been originally a technologist and you've built this amazing product. You might have been a marketer and you know how to drive the customer funnel, but you don't know how to talk to reporters. You could come from any sort of background. Where do you start with building out the materials that you need to really go after that media attention, to speak to reporters, to just have that online somewhere? What do you start to build out? Renee, do you wanna start?
That's actually the perfect segue from that concise story. I mean, you've got to have a story first. So you've got a product, you've got an idea. That's awesome. Why do you have it? What problem are you solving? You've really got to be able to tell that story first. You've got to have that short description about who you are. So, a lot of times with especially founders, you're so passionate about your company, and that's great. So I talk about what you're doing, and there's a 5-minute conversation about why you started the company and where it came from, and that is too long to get media attention, quite frankly. So one of the first things you've got to do is boil it down to what I do and why I do it in 30 words to get media to initially like perk up. Oh, that's interesting. And then you've got time to tell that background story. So getting your story down concisely, and then frankly, it's some of the background pieces you need to just establish credibility. Their media are not going to cover a company that doesn't have a website. You've got a great product, great. They're kind of not going to believe it exists if you don't have a website. So you've got to have all those foundational pieces, secure your social channels. You've got to have your intellectual property all in place, because you don't want to go out to media and start telling your story without your brand name secured. So really those are the most foundational pieces before you ever start talking to media. The last thing I'll say you need foundationally is a spokesperson. So you as the founder are probably that person, but not always. So you've got to have the person that's going to be really willing to talk to media. You know, sometimes we get founders as clients who don't want to talk to the media. You know, they are very code guys, product guys. It's not their forte to tell their story to media. So we've got to figure out who that person is first, because media are gonna want to talk to you. You've got to be able to have a conversation with them. They don't just want to talk to me as your PR person. They want to talk to you as the passionate person behind the product. So having that spokesperson in place, along with the website and the product and all of those foundational pieces, are really what you need before you ever go to press.
Yeah, I love that about building your story and building it concisely. And I mean, reporters are going to come back to you maybe with something just whooshed. Maybe it was a dragon. Reporters may come back to you asking for, you know, specific things. So I want to get into a little bit into the weeds with this vocabulary, especially since we have these experts here and we can use them. So that elevator pitch, that short 30-second story, if they ask you for that pitch, that's what that is. Your boilerplate description, right? That's that short description that you could put at the bottom of a press release. This is what my company does. This is my product. This is why it's important. There's also a media kit, right? So that's something that should be on that website that you just built. What needs to be in there? And Leslie, do you want to take that?
Well, I confess that I'm a secret baker, so it's all about ingredients and accuracy and consistency. It's the same in PR and a media kit. So first of all, you do need to be consistent. You don't want to be saying something completely different on your website and your social media to what you're saying in your media kit. There are some core elements which actually broadly reflect your website, and your website should have a media resource page on which you can not only put the basic kit electronically, but you can actually put some good coverage on there as well, some photos, other media resources. Okay, so what's in the kit? The main press release, we're going to delve into that, the tailoring and the boilerplate and what should be in that. But the background, okay, so we need to have information on who you are, the human story, the bios, the leaders, what your credentials are. Yes, we'll have as background the data, the information, why it's in-depth details of why your product is a breakthrough. You also must have a very clear way that people can get in touch with you easily and be responsive. So not just to the website, but usually an email, but also a telephone number. Journalists like to get their own exclusive quote. The main thing with everything you send to the media, it has to be accurate. The media get hundreds and hundreds of pitches, and they get hundreds of press releases sent to them every day. Think about doing it in AP, Associated Press style, so it's going to make it easy for them to edit. Don't make basic mistakes. On Thursday, February the 20th, when that's a Tuesday or whatever it might be, you'd be surprised. Make sure the names are spelt right. Make sure that there are no grammatical errors. Make sure that it's easy for them to lift it and use those elements in their reporting, because the journalist's worst complaint is the shoddy examples that they see. If you're going to proofread something 5 times, it should be your media kit, and get someone else to as well.
That's a very good point. And I actually want to bring one more thing up that, Kiki, I've really seen since I've taken over her role and taken on that responsibility, and something that she really taught me. And it's something that absolutely needs to be in a media kit or in your arsenal that we haven't really touched on quite yet, and that's visuals, right? So one thing Kiki said to me when she was kind of explaining about the different pitches I'll get is how critical those visuals are. So your logo, pictures of your executives, photos of your team. Kiki, what do you need to have visual-wise in that media kit and in your, even in a pitch email to a reporter?
Yeah, so if you're working in technology, sometimes you don't really have sexy images, but there's a reason why we're calling articles or placement stories, right? You're going to be weaving a story about what your company is and what it does. So a way to do that is get the people who make it in front of the camera, and not necessarily an iPhone image that's grainy and that you took a screenshot from Instagram or whatever. Something that's high quality. Ask a friend. It doesn't have to be some elaborate expensive kind of photography. Show pictures of your offices. Show pictures of how your app is supposed to work, like a mock-up or other things like that. Imagery really tells a story of what you're doing. Even if you're doing something that's SaaS or really B2B, trying to think about the human element and having really great imagery that can go along with that is really important. And it's also a good exercise for you. So if you're trying to use it for collateral down the line for your social media, or a reporter's coming immediately back to you, it's just really good to have that kind of just there. Bright colors, clear, crisp. It's good. White space.
Adding to that, high resolution, please. As someone that is constantly now searching for visuals, that's not even something that should be done down the line. Do that as soon as you're crafting your media kit. A picture is literally worth 1,000 words, even though we're talking about words. That's all really, really important. So that's really your first step, I would say. Build a media kit before you go after the media. Have it ready. Don't have a reporter knocking on your door because they heard you have an awesome product and be scrambling to put together your elevator pitch. Have it ready. Make it part of the next step after you built your product. So the next thing you may have to do is you may have to craft an actual media release, right? So what does that mean? That's the tool that you're going to be using to communicate to reporters. That's what you're going to be sending out there and putting out in the world to say, this is why you want to cover me. This is why you want to talk about me. What's the basics of that? Let's break down literally the 101. What is a media release? And Leslie?
Well, in spite of all the advances in technology, the basics haven't really changed. Think about very carefully what your message is. Again, remember the media are going to be inundated. So you have to capture your key proposition, the key news within the heading and the first paragraph. That's basic. You have to engage them at that point. Don't make it too long. There's a classic structure. There's the heading. You've got that intro, which is your key message. You can drill down a little, pulling out the most interesting things. And that can be, as Kiki said, the human element. Why is it an exciting story? Think about what you read. So when you read about Facebook, it's always about Zuckerberg's startup back in university when he was 18 and geeky. Think about as well, if you're reading about innovation, it's because Jane Doe's little boy was born with a handicap and this medical device is actually going to make his life easier. So think about that and get a taste of that in. Have a quote. It's endorsement. It humanizes it, either from yourself or for a key opinion leader. And then, of course, you need to have the how to get in touch with you for more, your website, and then that basic boilerplate of who you are. But keep it brief. If you can get it on what would have been a page, if you can get it on one page, you certainly want the key message early on when they scan. If you're lucky enough that they scan yours, that they read on and they ideally get in touch with you. Sounds basic, but it's important.
I like the going back to the basics thing, right? It's that who, what, where, when, and why, and maybe how as well. So why is this important? Why do I care? Put that in the first paragraph, please, because, to Kiki's point, reporters get a lot of pitches, and they want to know why they care about this. That being said, what's sort of worthy of a media release, right? I mean, you may have tweaked your product. Is that a release? You may have hired someone new. Is that a release? It may all depend on, the company and where you're going, but what's definitely worthy of a release and what's definitely not?
Sure, and I'll take a quick step back and just say, to be good at PR, you've got to be a voracious news junkie. So to answer that question, think about what you're reading in the news. What makes a story? A new product? Yes. I do a ton of B2B tech, so case studies. So, my client gets Hershey as their client and they see a success. Absolutely, that's a story. A new CEO, you're reading about those things all the time. Product enhancements are one of those borderline things. So I listened to part of the last panel and they were talking about machine learning. So you had a product that all of a sudden is now implementing machine learning to make it smarter. Yes, probably worth a release. You have a product and you change the user interface, not so much. So really, what are you reading in the news? New product, yes. Big key new hire, if you've got a new hire, especially that came to your small startup from Google, from Apple, absolutely, that gives you some credibility. And big new product updates and client wins are the big 4 press releases you might want to write. Now, there's 2 ways to do press releases. One is actually for media attention. So I'm getting this in front of reporters who might want to cover it. And those are the reasons you would send a release to a reporter. There are also times when you'd want to release just to put on your website for search purposes, just to show momentum. You haven't had a big worthy product update in 6 months. You don't want your newsroom that Leslie mentioned to start looking old and stale. So there may be times, smaller product announcements, lower level staff that you do want to write a release for and put it on your site, but not necessarily send that out to media. And then the last thing that's usually worthy of a release is sort of roll-up momentum releases, especially at the end of the year and mid-year, and tech clients, we're seeing a lot of success with those. So year-over-year changes in revenue and bookings, that's when you can kind of roll up 4 lower level hires into one release, 4 or 5 new clients that someone may not have heard of, and putting that all together as one big, wow, look at how far this company has come in 6 months. Those things weren't worthy of a release all on their own, but when you roll them up into one, those can be attention grabbing too.
Yeah, and I think, and we're going to delve into, sort of how to identify your media targets later, but I think that has a place in this conversation as well, because your release may be slightly different depending on who you're trying to target, right? So I'm just going to use like a local example from Atlanta, but we'll get a lot of releases on office moves, right? That might be relevant to an Atlanta reporter. I wouldn't send a release on an Atlanta office move to Fast Company, or to, Business Insider. They're just not going to care. So that may also be very dependent, and it can go both ways. Your release can sort of help you identify your target. Your target can help you figure out what you need to start writing about and putting on the wire. That being said, what is the wire? Do you need to be on it? A lot of people talk about it, but nowadays with the digital world, everyone is like, oh, well, news breaks on Twitter. Who even cares? Do you even need to put a release on the wire? Is a CEO blog enough? Kiki, what do you think as someone who's been a reporter and a PR person and a founder?
So The Wire is the main source where you can place media releases. It's a place for reporters to be able to pick up releases that you shared, and it's really easy to sort and to kind of pick and choose from what's there. It also really helps with your traffic. So just by putting in a release onto The Wire, down the line when people are searching for your company or even if they're searching for general terms, they may go to The Wire, which has kind of a catalog and will kind of put you in lumps with other things within your field. It's really important to have that there. It's also a great exercise for you to just have the basic facts out in the world. And again, when you're crafting a pitch or a press release, just like when you're developing your product, you're developing user stories, right? You're trying to figure out who is going to be using your product. You do the same thing with your releases sometimes. You might have different crafts for your releases and different placement of those releases. Just a little bit of tweak of these are the types of people that might be interested in it, and these are the types of publications that might be into it. But The Wire is incredibly useful. It's not really that expensive, and it's very helpful.
Okay, perfect. So you wrote your release. You have your media kit. You have a product update. You have something exciting to talk about. That's great. Now what do? You have to go after reporters, but you have to figure out how to pitch yourself, right? So how do you get their attention? What do you do? I mean, they're going through 200 pitches a day. And I think that a lot of people are just stumped at this next step because they've got this great story to tell and they don't know how to get it out there. How do you kind of pitch yourself? What do you do? What's the first step? And how do you grab people's attention, Leslie?
Do you want to know what annoys the media more than anything? Number two at my agency edited newspapers for 15 years. It's to not know anything about who they write for, broadcast, and it happens. It's very rude. It would be like somebody calling you and asking you for something you don't produce. There is nothing worse than just throwing spaghetti at the wall, than sending, as you mentioned, Holly, sending a story about an Atlanta office move to a national investor publication. They're not going to care, and it actually annoys the journalist. It's kind of like trying to teach a pig to sing. It's a waste of your time and it'll annoy the pig. So think about being polite. It's manners. I'm very British and into manners, but you actually need to know, you need to read their newspaper, read their blogs, check out their website, watch their shows. And yes, watching TV can be work, kind of. Really, it's done online at about 9 o'clock at night. But you actually need to really think about, so do your research as you would if you were going into an investor presentation. You would research and you would tailor that story to that audience. It's exactly the same with the media. So yes, you need to be punchy, you need to have a catchy first line, you need to keep it brief, but above all, you need to prove that you value that third-party endorsement, that you really believe that it is worthwhile. Because even if they reject your story, they're not going to hate you. They're going to think, okay, they tried, it was worth a pitch, I'm not going to run it this time. And that's incredibly important. And that's my number one advice.
No, I think that's super important, and it's sort of what separates, I think, a great PR agency like an ARPR from, a mediocre one. Is like I've seen media lists that it's just national versus local. That's not enough of a division. You need to know what their focus is. Are they focused on health IT? Are they focused on investors? Are they focused on, do that research and then identify where to send that release. Because if the release is great, but it's going to the wrong reporters, they're not going to care. So that's definitely important, is identifying those targets, know who you're speaking to. Now, how do you reach them? You can craft the email. That's one great way. Another way I've seen that several founders, at least, who don't have their own PR agencies or their own PR representatives have come to me, as in my very short time at Hippopotamus, has been they'll reach out on social media. They'll tweet at us. Is that okay? I mean, I don't mind it. Will most reporters?
Most reporters don't mind it. A lot even appreciate it. 70% of reporters are spending 2 hours of their day on social media already, so why not reach them where they are. I have a stat too. I think most reporters look at 3 social media profiles for every story that they write. So general answer, yes, absolutely. LinkedIn, Twitter, great for pitching. I've had success on both. However, there are some reporters that you are going to piss off if you do that. So it all goes back to what Leslie said. You got to do your research. If they are an avid on Twitter, if they're constantly engaging with other people, absolutely pitch them on Twitter. If they haven't sent a tweet in 2 years, stay away from Twitter. I mean, it's all about knowing your audience. Twitter, I find, is excellent too, because it really forces you to boil down your story into what they need to know and what they're interested in. It helps to cut through those 200 pitches a day that they're getting in email. So again, if you're targeting a reporter that's super active, we've seen a lot of success on it. We also counsel a lot of our clients on executive visibility and making sure our founders have very strong LinkedIn profiles. A lot of times we'll send them suggestions and say, hey, this reporter is really perfect to cover your company. Can you connect with them on LinkedIn? Send them sometimes I'll draft it for them. Here's a quick note to send this reporter via LinkedIn when you try to connect. And we've actually had stories result just from those connections too. Like, oh, this is great. Can we talk? So yes, do your research, but social is huge for pitching now.
And that being said, I think that goes back to one of the things we talked about in the very beginning. Please, before you reach out on Twitter, before you reach out on LinkedIn, have your profiles in order. Don't have your Twitter be an old photo from 4 years ago of, not that I don't want to do it on the weekend, but of you rolling around in the mud with your dog. Have your executive profiles in order, have your company profiles in order. So if your executives don't want to really have a social media presence, build out a business profile. Have your logo be your cover photo. That's fine, and reach out with that. But have something in order that looks professional, and then reach out to the reporter. So I think that's very important. What if you've tweeted at them 4 times, LinkedIn messaged them 3 times, emailed them twice, and the reporter hasn't responded? At some point, there's a point where you need to stop. When do you cross that line, Kiki?
I think when you get to that point, you just need to stop in general. Yeah. Like anything, it's about building relationships. So you're going to be building relationships with these reporters. You're going to be building relationships across social. Again, back to that point, like you might be sending out very professional tweets, but then there's like one of you having like drinking and doing, keg stands with your staff. As you see a lot more, especially in major tech publications, things that you put on social media are fodder for quotes. So you'll see like someone embedding, Twitter feeds within articles nowadays. So again, be careful on social. But the courtesy is once you send a pitch to someone, give that reporter at least a week to get back to you. If they don't get back to you, then a follow-up courtesy email is okay, and contacting them through social media. If they still don't respond, kind of take that as a hint. And then retweak whatever your pitch is. So like at Hippopotamus, we're a fairly small publication. We cover mostly Georgia, but we receive upwards of 400 pitches a week. The typical reporter, 45% of reporters at major publications only write 1 article a day. At major sites, they're receiving 100 to 200 pitches per day. That's upwards to 26,000 pitches for any given reporter in the tech communities per year. So about 1% of pitches are actually picked up. So having your pitch or your release really tight is very good. And also, like, if you're not getting response, take that as a hint that you need to, revamp how you're telling your story. What I find when people are sending a pitch or sending a release is it's either too short. They give you just 1 sentence. Hey, I think you'd like this. Look at my website. No. Number 2 is that they send you like a 4-page email about the minutia of everything that they do, and oh my gosh, it's the most amazing thing ever. And you're like, you haven't even done your product research. There's 4 other people doing that within a 300-mile radius of you. So that kind of thing is just getting it very tight, getting kind of the very, simple things, and, iterating it. But you can get blacklisted. I've had people email me repeatedly and get very angry at me. Someone found my home email or my home phone number, called me at home on the weekend, and was really upset. And we're just a small publication. I've heard even worse stories from other people in other fields. So just be kind. Remember that it's the people behind the stories.
And I'll just follow up to that. If you get angry now, you ruin the relationship. We had a health IT client last year send a pitch. It never went anywhere. Just wasn't the right time for the reporter. They didn't have time to get back to us. Did a couple courtesy follow-ups. Never went anywhere. It happens. It happens a lot in our industry. This year, they reached out and said, hey, I know you guys do a lot of health IT because I filed that email away. So, if we'd gotten aggressive and been crazy about it, they would have just deleted us and never came back. But because we just were professional, they filed it away, came back a year later, and now we have a relationship.
And can I add as well, just walk in their shoes. Think about, you all know what you're doing and how busy and how many roles. It is tough to be a journalist, particularly now. The old days that, yes, I'm old enough to remember, of extensive staff and lunches, they're gone. You've got fewer and fewer staff doing more and more. Their freelance budgets are being cut. They're being pitched to heck. So actually think about the pressures they have. And one of the things that most annoys me, I'll tell you about as a PR, when a client says, I know the editor, dear, it'll be fine. Oh my goodness. The editor has a professional job to do. They are still going to evaluate your story against all the other stories out there. Yes, relationships are important, but you still have to make the cut in terms of being successful. And as Renee and Kiki said so well, you just have to think about why they are ignoring you or why your story didn't make it. So just think about what it's like to be on the other side of the receiving of all of those pitches.
Yeah, that was all great. And I want to go back to something that Kiki said that I think is really important in this conversation, is that you want to own your story. You don't want the reporter to own your story, right? So going back to social media, having, and even your website and your media kit, all of that, having that all very buttoned up, your Twitter is totally feed for reporters now. And as a reporter, as someone that's looking for something interesting, if someone goes off on a Twitter rant, I'll cover that instead of covering their pitch on their new product. I mean, 100%. That's way more of an interesting story that'll get more clicks. So don't do that. Like, own your Twitter, own your story rather than having the reporter own it. And this is me going against myself because now I'm a reporter, right? But that's an important thing that I think needs to be highlighted and underlined and cannot be said enough. And I just really wanted to highlight that. I mean, I have literally seen now that live social media is becoming more of a thing. So we've got Facebook Live, Instagram Live, we've got Snapchat. A lot of companies are getting on Snapchat. Oh, it's the new cool thing. We'll get all the millennials, we'll get all the kids. Your Snapchat can be saved. It can be screenshotted. It's not necessarily ephemeral. And there have been a lot of stories of people, you give an intern or someone that doesn't know as much about your company access to those social media channels because it's just Snapchat, it's new, who cares, the kids are watching it. That will get screenshot, that will get sent to a reporter, and all of a sudden your product pitch might be amazing, but they're gonna cover your accidental Snapchat story, and that's not what you want. So that being said, I think that's kind of the perfect transition to how to appropriately communicate with the media, which is an art in and of itself. So, what does a reporter care about and how do you talk to them about it? What does it mean to go off the record? And Kiki, I think you'd be the perfect person to speak to this. How do you talk to a reporter?
So a lot of early stage founders have never talked to the press before, and it can be kind of scary. And of course, there's tons of articles out there about how to conduct yourself professionally, and just like you would do in a job interview. That's the way you should approach meeting with a reporter, there's sometimes this like myth that when you go to a reporter, you should kind of act like what you see on Silicon Valley or in these other things where you're just really casual or whatever. But trying to give respect to the reporter is really important. And never say anything that you would not want to be in the press. So you can say off the record, which before you say anything that you do not want to be reported on or quoted, you have to say off the record, not after the fact, before you even say it. I've encountered that a lot where people start telling you the details of the proprietary things about what makes their technology so great, and they're like, but I can't really tell you that, but you just did. So the only time that you usually should say off the record is usually if you're trying to give the reporter a little bit of like an inside scoop. So let's say I'm interviewing Holly, and I'm like, Holly, you're doing such incredible growth at your startup. And then she's like, what are you going to be doing with, the incoming funds that are coming there? And she can be like, off the record, we're about to announce that we've just hired a new CFO or a CMO or something like that. That gives a reporter like, oh, I'm getting an inside scoop that I can follow up later, or I can potentially, like, if that news is going to hit within, a week or so, then I can, then leverage that information then later, or push the story. But again, don't say anything that you would not want printed, and also it's going to dampen your relationship too. I've had people tell me stuff about like their domestic problems at home with their partners, about getting blackout drunk. It's not appropriate. So just imagine that you're forming these relationships and you're wanting to impress these people because, they are the ones that are telling your story. And what they really want to hear is, what is your story? How does your product actually affect people or processes that make things better? They don't want to know about kind of whatever code that you're using in it. So, okay.
Yeah, I think off the record can actually be a useful tool, that little quote, if you use it properly. So for example, if I'm interviewing the CEO of a company and he knows that I'm planning to run this story on Wednesday, but on Thursday they're going to announce they've just hired a CFO who came over from IBM. Just giving that little hint, off the record on Thursday, we've got a pretty big hire coming up. Maybe then I'll be like, oh, okay, I should hold the story until that comes out, and that'll be a way better story for the company. So it can be a useful tool. That being said, you're still telling them something, right? I mean, there's still something coming out. If you have a major funding round coming up and you won't get that $50 million if that story gets leaked, yeah, I wouldn't even say that, even if it's off the record times a million. Be careful with off the record. It can be good. It can steer you wrong. Okay, so that's, sort of those basic tools of talking to the media. Now let's say your product isn't, it's not so easy to understand. It's a software as a service, financial technology, code, blah, 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 whatever. It's super useful. It fills a great niche in the market. People need it. There is definitely a customer base for it. But for someone that isn't a fintech expert, it's kind of hard to understand. How do you learn how to distill down that jargon? And I want to give that to Renee.
Oh my God, it's so funny that you used that example, and I promise we didn't talk before this, but I have a fintech client, relatively new, that they were brand new at the point this happened. It was 2 weeks before Brexit. They signed our contract. Brexit happened. They had a very unique, I point to you because you're the British lady. And they had a unique story to tell regarding Brexit. So they do a tax compliance software automation. And they had a very good insights into what tax implications Brexit would bring to specifically American companies with locations in Britain, and whether or not a lot of those companies would be moving to Ireland. So there's this sort of, is Ireland the new Silicon Valley of Europe story. Great angle. Got an interview with the Wall Street Journal. Let me tell you, that does not happen in the first 2 weeks of working with the client. Does not happen. So this is amazing. I'm giddy. Wall Street Journal conversation. their CEO, who's the best to talk to this, was on an airplane at the time the Wall Street Journal wanted to talk, and you talk to the Wall Street Journal when the Wall Street Journal wants to talk. It was the only time she could talk, so we got their product tax guy, amazingly smart. The interview was terrible because he was talking about triangulation and VAT tax, and the reporter had no idea what triangulation and VAT tax were, and he could not explain them. I mean, she wanted the "Is Ireland the next Silicon Valley" story, and he was talking about all these logistics as to why. So you've really got to, like we've all said, we keep using the word story. You've got to tell a story. You've got to tell the problem and the solution and the characters that care. There needs to be characters in your story. So who are the people affected by this, and what's going to happen to them? There's no character in triangulation and value-added tax. Like, who are the executives? Who are the employees at these companies who are going to be affected? Who are the buyers that are now going to be paying more tax or less tax or lose their jobs? That's the story reporters want to hear. So cut out all the technical, unless you're talking to the CIO or Information Week who may care about some of the technical aspects. I would say, unless you're asking about the technical aspects, don't volunteer those up front, because really they want the story. So avoid talking about SaaS, talking about machine learning and AI and some of these things with a more just business-oriented reporter. You really want to boil those down into, what does that mean for you? What does that mean for the reporter? Think about it. The reporters are consumers themselves, so how would you tell it to a consumer? That's what they want to hear.
Kiki, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think a great way to deal with that is actually, since most of your interviews are going to be by phone, is actually just write down all of the talking points that you need to be saying. Because just because you get an interview with someone doesn't mean that that reporter will not drop that story completely. It happens quite often. So having your talking points, having your language clearly defined, if you use a term, immediately having that, like, comma, this is what this is, and then going from there is incredibly important as you're talking to reporters.
And our Wall Street Journal article definitely got dropped.
I'm glad I brought up that example, and that's actually a super good point, to just write down your points, because like we said, reporters have so much to do these days. They're a lean team also. I mean, newsrooms are scaling down, and a lot of them will have sort of what you call broad but shallow knowledge. So, like, for example, I have a background in health IT. I can talk about EMRs all day long. FinTech, you've got me. I mean, I don't know what triangulation is. I'm just going to go ahead and admit it. And you would have lost me there. I would have turned on my recorder and, kind of drifted off a little bit. So avoid the jargon. Just speak plainly. Why does this matter? Who's going to care about it? So I want to wrap up with one other thing, and then we'll take Q&A, but I just want to touch really briefly on what we call crisis communications, because I do think this is important. So crisis communications is exactly what it sounds like, right? It's you, and it happens to all of us. You screwed up a little bit, right? You thought your product was going to do this, and it got a bug, and it dropped everything it was going to do. You didn't do what you promised you were going to do. One of your new executives went off on a Twitter rant, or had a little bit too much fun at CES, whatever. So there's a crisis. The media has decided to cover, of course, as they would, a crisis. What do you do? What are the basics? What do you need to wrap up and get in order and tie tight, and how do you deal with that? And I think let's just actually go down the line, because I feel like everyone here might have some good insights on this.
So plan ahead as you would with anything. First of all, make sure both you and your employees don't put anything out there that you wouldn't want on the news at 11. So think about what you're putting out, not just in your official releases, but seriously, don't put anything on Facebook or Twitter. Even, it's my personal account. They're going to link it. The media are independent. They will always look for the story. They don't just want to be spoon-fed what you spoon-feed them. They want that to start with, but but then they want their angle. And if there's a juicy story, they'll drop the one you fed them, as we've said. So plan ahead. Think about your sector. I mean, I'm just very glad I wasn't doing the public relations for Samsung and the Note 7. That's a classic example in the technology field. But what you need to do, don't just think it won't happen. Don't be an ostrich and bury your head in the sand. Have a plan in place. And it can be fairly basic, but you need to know, first of all, you need to identify possible glitches. So if you know secretly that there is a weakness with your product, or you have a sales manager that, you know, is a little bit too fond of certain substances, you know, other than planning it, you need to have a plan. So who will the spokesperson be? Have a basic Q&A document up your sleeve to how you would respond. And always respond to the media, because if you don't give them a response, they'll just find something far worse. But have an issues management. We offer issues management to our clients so that we plan for the worst, and yes, of course, hope for the best, and refresh it. Don't just put it, it's like a will, don't just put it in your drawer or, you know, file it away and don't look at it for 5 years. Make sure it's still fresh and relevant as your company evolves and as your product evolves.
And with that, once you have that plan in place, you should have an understanding of what merits a response and what doesn't. So Patagonia, very vocal politically in terms of the environment. They get some pushback from people who are like, you know, you're my clothing company. I like your jackets. I don't want you involved in this. They don't apologize for that, because that is their brand. That is the reputation they want. Same with Beyonce after the Super Bowl last year. She got pushback for politicizing the Super Bowl. You know what? She didn't apologize because that's how she wants to manage her reputation. So knowing what deserves a response and what doesn't should be part of your planning. Then, so you do something, you screw up on Twitter, and it does deserve a response. I call it the SOS approach. Respond with sincerity, respond by taking ownership, and respond with a solution. So BP is the classic example. After the oil spill, their CEO issued an apology. He said, trust me, nobody wants their life back more than me. It's not a very sincere apology right there. So if you can't be believable in your apologize, think of a different approach. Take ownership. You know, so often with these social media mishaps, it's, oh, our intern did it. Well, you know what? You didn't have the processes in place. Take ownership. Nobody wants to see you pawning this off on someone else. And then have a solution. So it happened. Here's why it's not going to happen again. That is the perfect statement to respond to a crisis.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to be personal about it. Yik Yak has gone through several issues over the course of its, history. Last year, particularly with the Mizzou threats that were happening as a result of the social media, the founders put a very tactful blog post up on their site that the media then was able to quote and to be able to respond to. So adding a human touch to that is also very important. And it's okay to say no comment as well in certain instances. A lot of people have the need to feel like they just need to respond to everything that comes their way. And also getting a lockdown on your employees. Oftentimes reporters will get majority of their story from those that are inside the organization. So how often do you read an article and you'll see within that article, you know, a copy of an official letter sent from the CEO to staff, or Slack channels screenshots. So being able to handle your internal communications is also incredibly important when there's a crisis. Yeah, so I think we're opening it up to Q&A now.
So you pick them. Yeah. Here, I'll throw this back and then I'll distribute amongst. Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
I wrote it down so I won't forget.
Could you take?
I can hear
Sure.
him.
Because you may, not everybody
No problem.
hears well. Okay. You speak well.
Thank you. First of all, thank you. This was really helpful. And I wrote down my question. What advice would you give to an organization that's been around for years and really hasn't contacted the media, doesn't have a media kit, doesn't have press releases? There may not be a big product release that's imminent that you can, contact the media about. How would you go about transitioning into the world of talking to the media and getting the word out? I'm assuming it would have a lot to do with talking about your accomplishments if you've been around for a few years, talking about what you've done, how far you've come. But I'm sort of open to ideas, asking for a friend.
No, that's a good question, and it's sort of like, how do you start building your story when you've already had a story? Leslie, do you want to take that one?
Sure, that's a really good question. And in fact, clients come to us, well, hey, we've been around for 5 years, but we never really promoted ourselves. So build the backstory. Renee talked about, it may not be we're going to revolutionize the world, we're going to launch something, but start building releases and putting them on your website so you have a track record. There's going to be stuff out there as well. Research yourself, Google yourself, see what's already in the public domain. Make sure that the vehicles you have, websites, social media, are actually communicating what they want to. And then just plan ahead. Look at what's on the horizon for the next year. What is going to make news? Put a plan in place and think, okay, I'm going to start small because we're moving offices, so I'm going to contact the local business journalists, So toe in the water and be consistent. The worst thing to do is go, oh my gosh, I forgot about PR. Go out of here, set up every social media avenue you can, start throwing releases out there. No, think about your strategy and have a plan. And it's completely okay to start small and start late.
And I'll add to that, there's a whole section of media relations that we haven't talked at all about, and that's thought leadership. And that's really where I would direct you if you don't have a lot of company news. It's these thought leadership pieces. So if you check out our blog, we've got a lot of top 3 tips for gaining media attention, the top 10 trends in fintech in 2017. What are those? What are you expert about that only you can speak to, that may not be, breaking news, a new product? Media are definitely interested in those types of stories as well. One interesting trend that we've seen as media are becoming more and more short-staffed and more time-strapped, they're more willing to accept contributed content. So this would be an article that you or one of your staff actually write, and then they publish it. Hype publishes some contributed content from time to time. A lot of trade do. So some of my clients reach retail or manufacturing, and their trade publications are very willing to accept that contributed content. It can't be promotional. It's not about your company, but it's about trends in your industry. And you're the thought leader, and your company name is in your bio and in the top line, but it's really you as an expert. Exactly.
Yeah, and a lot of the major publications now are taking contributor content. The majority of Inc. and Entrepreneur, for example, is all contributor content, as well as the Huffington Post is mostly contributor content, or almost all contributor content. And then also, like, the fact that you've been in business for such a long time, if you can say, we're a tech company that's still in business, showing how you've done that is a really great way to, get press, and also telling the stories of the people within your, your organization. So.
One last thing I thought of as we were talking about that is, and this goes along with the thought leadership piece, but you don't necessarily have to make news with something that your company is doing. The news it can go in the opposite direction. So Brexit is the actual perfect example. Brexit happened, and then a fintech client could make news with their product. Your product might be exactly the same, but some sort of current event just happened that you can highlight your product through. That's ideal. So I don't know, a hurricane happens, right? And you've got a product that has been crunching big data numbers for weather patterns for 3 years. But how did what did you learn from the hurricane? What can you then take off that? What did you provide to the people that needed help during that current event? Use what's already happening to talk about your own story. Yeah.
Without getting political, if you look at what defense companies are putting out now, because they're very excited, because the government is going to spend a lot on defense. So they are using that opportunity. Their output is increased enormously in PR terms. So that's, again, another example, which is why you need to be an avid consumer of the media yourself.
Let's take 2 more questions.
Yeah. I'm going to take you. And then you're next. Yep.
Thank you. Hi, I'm the co-founder of a new user experience tech startup incubator at SCAD, and we have a large unveiling event at the end of this quarter. And I was wondering, how soon is too soon for media attention? Should I do it before or after the event?
It's at the end of Q1. First of all, you should put it on our events calendar. So, that being said, how soon is I mean, it really depends on the event and the media you're targeting. Perhaps if you're targeting Savannah reporters, if it's at the end of Q1, I don't think now is too soon to get it on their radar. That being said, I wouldn't expect a story next week. What do you guys think?
We'll just go down. Remember how busy they are. So for an example like that, get it on the calendar. I mean, and it really is, even these days in the WTOC, you know, they will actually put stuff on there. Oh, there's going to be an event there. Certainly think about the long lead time media, because Savannah Magazine, South Magazine, they work way, way, way in advance. And if you want to pitch an exclusive to them, particularly with one of their specialist writers, or you want something in biz for the Savannah Morning News, you can sound them out, you can pitch them now, but you know, court them as though you wanted to date them. You know, think about someone you actually want to make them feel special, because actually having one targeted quality story in biz in this market for the Savannah Morning News is going to be worth a lot more than your sort of secondary just repeating that. So don't give it all away now, but start the process and plan.
Yep. And so one good way to get media at your event is to give them a role. So, you know, on a panel automatically gets hype here. I'm sure you guys were coming before that, but that's something to consider too. If you want media at your event, figure out a way. Is it a sponsorship? Is it an award? How will you get them involved in the event? And then the other thing, be sure to take, as she said earlier, high-res, high-quality photos, because a lot of these publications, South Magazine and some of the local publications, will absolutely run post-event photos. So be sure you've got something good to send them.
Yeah, and then usually I find that having the one-to-one date, so like either like a month out, 3 months out, or 2 weeks out, like something that's going to give them like a mental cue, oh, this thing is happening at this time, is also very helpful. I think the rest here has already pretty much answered the rest of that question, so.
And where was that other question? Oh, wait, you had a question in the last panel. I have to give it to him.
Just a quick question on contacting reporters. How do they feel about businesses versus agencies contacting them? You know, because I've had PR companies tell me, you know, they want to talk to people who are used to their industry, who are used to the lingo, who can not overwhelm them with, you know, the energy some CEOs or executives might have as founders. So which path is better as a founder to approach? Trying to get personal relationships with them, or going through agencies who may have existing relationships?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think I'm going to give it to everyone to answer, but I think that a lot of the times it will depend on the circumstance, right? So, and it can be a hybrid. So you may have a PR agency reach out and say, if the reporter bites, I would love to connect you to my CEO. Or you may have a CEO use his agencies to field requests from reporters. A lot of founders can't afford agencies quite yet. That's totally okay. I think it is sort of a hybrid and dependent on the situation. But I want everyone to speak to that.
Well, as an agency owner, I'd obviously say hire an agency. However, the thing to remember, and what we can do is we can take the load off the client when they're busy and successful enough. That doesn't mean you can't do it. But it's going to be an investment, and you have to decide if that's an investment of time and expertise you are prepared to make. So don't give your social media campaign to the intern, because they're a millennial and they get all that. They're not going to be putting out the right messages. So whether you use an agency or whether you do it yourself, it needs to be done properly. What we do for our clients, we will prepare briefing notes for both the media and our client. So those talking points, the media have those, and the visuals, the high-res visuals. We will also brief the client in advance, not just about the questions and avoiding jargon, but a little background. What is the angle? Little bit about the media, what this journalist, how they like to work. And then you're actually looking at just the sheer time in brokering that and arranging that, because journalists are busy, the CEO is busy. There'll come a point when it's a better investment to actually say, can you set this up for me and make this telephone interview happen at 11 o'clock on Tuesday? This is the phone number and all the briefings there. So I don't know if that answers, but it has to be a business decision like any other business decision, an investment.
To his question, do either of you have anything major to add? Yes? Yes?
Very quickly, again, somewhat biased, and reporters do end all want to talk to the founder, but an agency does lend an air of credibility. So some of the top national publications have gone on record saying they're not covering startups anymore because they've gotten burned. They've covered a startup, they said this is the next great thing, and it's gone bust the next month. So showing that you've got the funding to hire PR firms sometimes can lend you that credibility that they need to trust that they can trust what they're writing about you.
And if you're not at the stage where you can afford that, actually having a dummy email account that's like PR at whatever your company's name is helpful. And if you actually go through the process of setting up your press release or your pitch. Now, there is a difference between a pitch and a press release. If you have a press release, which is news specifically about what's happening, it's great to use a PR agency. If you have a pitch of like, we really want to feature our CEO, she's a 52-year-old female who did this, this, and this, that might be more appropriate to come from someone within the organization.
And one very, very quick minor thing, not minor, but one very quick thing I want to add to that, along with the dummy account, is that if you can't hire a full PR agency on a monthly retainer, a lot of agencies will do a one-off or a couple-off media training for your executives or your founders. That's invaluable. So totally understood if you can't hire a PR agency. That being said, I would send your CEO or your founder, or send yourself to a 2-hour session with a professional PR person who can give them a full media training. This is what you say, this is what you can't say, basically what we just said, but one-on-one, that's invaluable. So, and that can be a one-off thing. And now I want to really quickly get to your question. I think we have like 4 minutes. So we have 4 minutes.
There's a broad spectrum of media channels available, which seems to be ever expanding, and you as media specialists in that industry have to be constantly aware of what channels are being developed and who the audience might be in those respective channels. If the business has content and it's ready to be distributed, should the business owner be selective in terms of what channels they should want to have that content distributed, or should they just trust a business such as yours to identify which channels are appropriate?
So again, I think this is a very similar answer, where a PR agency is going to be the expert, right? They know exactly what publication is appropriate for what audience each thing is on. That being said, again, you can't always afford them. Looking very closely at the types of things that certain, let's say the mostly contributor places cover. So you have this great thought leadership piece. Do you put it on LinkedIn and try to get it in Pulse? Do you try to submit it to the Huffington Post? Do you try to submit it to a Forbes, which takes a lot of contributor pieces? Huffington Post and Forbes have a lot of the same content. They have pretty different audiences. So knowing what the right audience for that is invaluable, and that's just consuming the content that's on there. A PR agency is the expert. Oh, they are the experts on that, though, I will say.
Very quickly, stop, think, don't be sucked into action. Think about who your target is. Is it B2B? Is it B2C? Are you after seniors, potential investors, consumers? And then obviously a PR agency will be the experts in that, but you're the experts in your field. When we start working with a client on a project or a retainer basis, we suck you dry. Who are you trying to reach? What are those priorities? And then we can identify the best media and the best return on investment for you in your investment in a PR campaign, both time and money.
Yep, agree. I'll just add to that. We do a lot of persona development with our clients. So, we talked about a lot of goals for PR, assuming most of you guys want the customers and sales being the end-all, be-all goal. We work with your sales team, work with whoever's doing most of the sales, figure out who those target buyers are, and then we can do surveys or external research to figure out where they are. So sometimes it's not media, sometimes it's a trade show, sometimes they're digesting a lot of white papers and clicking through on LinkedIn ads. So really, we do all that on the front end to figure out where to reach them best.
And maybe, Kiki, this could be the last word. Is that fair?
I think that is totally fair.
The last word, wow. So I think for that, just if you actually create spreadsheets down to the granular parts of what your business does and find publications that are related to that, that's what the PR agencies already have, right? They're already developing those. But if you don't have the budget yet for a PR agency, starting to develop those master list of who to pitch based upon what you do. There's like 43 publications just about bonsai. So if you're in technology, there's hundreds, so there's going to be a place that you can probably place if you get the right messaging down and have the right contacts. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.